As it is evident from its title, small town is some place where urbanity has not yet reached its full vigor. It is still in infant stage. It may also sound reality smaller in size by area and also by population residing within it. But the concept is not fully clear simply by its demographic status or by its aerial occupants. There are special small urban settlement within hills providing facilities for resorts. Similarly, there are towns near or adjoining to mining areas also. These cannot fulfill the underlying concept of involving functions of urban center termed by urban geography as a small town. Population and aerial occupancy may be component of small town, but these do not carry the entire ecology of small towns. As pointed out by Monisa Raja, a great expert in urban geography, he explains that small towns occupy an important position in the urban rural continuum of India. Let us examine the statement in the context of our country, which overwhelmingly rural in our country. Space organization warrants a midway settlement to cover vast agrarian landscape and a city. This is because of the fact that only through a mechanism of the hierarchical system agro production forces could respond favorably. Our country, which is primarily agricultural, necessarily requires settlements to bridge rural and urban functionaries. A village which is actually a center of production of food products cannot singly handle the distribution and marketing of the same. Cities which are centers of administration, finance and commerce and socio-cultural institutions, health and education are too busy to perform as a base for collection and subsequent distribution of agricultural products of the surrounding region. It is actually this rural based function which links small towns with the countryside. Originally, small towns might have been rural centers, but in due course of time, they gradually have assumed urban character by virtue of the nodality, function and services, local as well as central. On the core of the urban built up area, there is a generally developed and outer fringes where urban shadow begins to appear and countryside dispersion gradually disappears. It is shown observed by the Mukherjee, small towns collecting the agriculture produce from the entire region and distribution and directing and according the sale of imports and manufactured goods. Small towns possess a unique binomial status of acting as a bridge between village and city or village and a town. They provide to village a sort of resort activity during their off period from agricultural operations. Farmers visit nearby larger urban center for having a change from their routine life and have a pastime. On the other side, cities being overcrowded have become unwieldy and too convenient to be a place for comfortable living. So, small towns may provide a new ground for metropolitan cities. Small towns should be developed at a reasonable distance by freeways from big urban centers to reverse the process of present trends of migration. small town is neither a village nor a city. It is an economic parlance representing the area providing liaison between rural centers and urban places of significance. It is here that the forces of demand and supply converge. Geographically, it varies from a well-defined village to a metropolitan center. It may be compared to spatial organism with fixed functions, behavioral patterns, growth processes depending upon the nature and extent of the region linkages in terms of transport and communicational network. So far, small towns have been identified in the census on the basis of population only. The demographic concept of small town is in vague for the past several decades. The census organization has consistently recognized 10 categories of settlement ranging from the population of less than 500 to more than 10 lakh. In this array of settlement, a small town is lost in oblivion. In India, there are towns too with population of less than 10,000. In between the array of 5,000 and 10,000, it is very confusion and non-scientific or unscientific to identify the census bound small town. So, mere population is not going to give us the clear picture about the town. It may be village and at the same time a town. In this connection, the statement of Monisa Raja may be again recalled, who supported the continuum with the threefold arrangement and not to break points. Formerly, there have been shahar, kasbah and gaon. These were the words to be used practically for all purposes. This array of three has emerged through a historical process spread over millennia. The break point of two, example village and city, does not fit into the overwhelming rural economy of India, and it is unable to integrally link the surrounding similar rural settlements with the larger settlements designated as shahars. It is by the exploitative economy during the colonial rule that the 3-point system was disrupted and the kasbah, small town in the real sense, were destroyed or considerably weakened. However, demographic criteria for the recognition of the significance of small town cannot be held valid. They act as vital links between various grades of lower status and full-fledged towns of the region. Small towns represent a sort of unison between town and countryside. Thus, there are two aspects of town function. They are of course interrelated, but are quite different. Together, they are the determinants of the growth. The product of that growth is the population of the small town, but the population size alone could not be reflected in its more important function. Example, centrality. It is according to Christoffels the degree to which the town served as a tributary area which is important rather than population. Small town act as a central place for the countryside that come into being to carry out at a central accessible place the tasks which the life of the countryside creates the interrelationship. In a country like India, where agriculture and other primary activities engage more than 70% population, role and behavior of small town form a significant part of the people's life. There people from countryside come to take advantage of various services and economic cultural institutions. A large number of administrative institutions and wholesale establishments provide. The farmers multiply services of a wide range functions. An identification of the characteristic functions and services at different hierarchical level was attempted on the basis of empirical observations. It may provide an idea of rural urban tribal behavior of villagers from countryside to small town in the region. The list is being tabulated and generalized on the basis of several studies, and it can be held sufficiently appropriate at the national level in India, but it should not be taken as a final and complete picture. The regional difference can only be identified through the systematic field observations. The movement of people from countryside to small towns has several options. In reality, in India, there is no village which is inclusively attached to a particular town. Empirically, it has been ascertained that people from each village visit 5 to 10 towns of the surrounding countryside, even for a single purchase or for utilizing a single service, for example, health, education, culture. These villages have a choice of places. They choose, of course, as near geographic convenience, but in many cases the choice depends as per their behavioral attitude about a particular small town. In India, share of small town in total urban population is highest in the northern half of the country, comprising the states of Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Orissa, Rajasthan, Assam and Jammu and Kashmir. In these cases, small towns constitute more than 60% of total number of towns. Small towns and their relationship with surrounding countryside and also with a city are not related only to underdeveloped areas characterized by primary occupations. Their linkages form essential part of the all sorts of countries, whether developed or developing or underdeveloped. In the USSR formerly known, Barsanki as points out, socialism leads to bridging the gap between the town and the countryside. But under the capitalism on the country, the gap is further identified. While the Soviet Union cities operate as strong points of the dictatorship of the proletariat in assisting the agriculture laboring population both economically and culturally. In capitalistic countries, cities operate as strong points of political power of exploiting classes operates the agriculture laboring population and increases their dependence. However, this cannot be denied that in both types of countries, the common traits of the small towns have very large significance. In United States of America, Nelson, an expert, pointed out that railroad centers were mostly small cities balancing the many urban centers of the country. It means they are small towns that are strikingly low in their proportions of transportation. Small towns and roads are also closely associated and contributes to each other's development by virtue of their intrinsic qualities of functions. Initially, each new town lead to the creation of roads leading into it and form it, and these centers along the road, especially at key points such as intersections with the other roads. So, roads are playing a very important role for the development of towns here. Cities like the corps of officers too possess their hierarchy. They include country town, small town, full-fledged town and capital regions and metropolitan centers within major economic region. Cities are subordinated to each other in certain pattern. The coordination among them reflects their specific functions and range of the activities. Each of them possesses its own radius of influence and of attraction. This is particularly apparent in the USSR, where regional centers are economic, cultural, administrative as well as political ones. To conclude, the aforesaid for urban geographers, the study of small town is a focal point because it is associated with the knowledge of countryside entering into their sphere of influence. The study is also of significance because the role played by small town is receiving a overgrown pressure on lakh towns and million cities. Small towns are instruments of stabilizing the balance of the urban process by their being regrets in symbiotic relationship between the lowest and uppermost settlement system. In India, the problem is grave. Here, growth of towns, especially in remote areas, it is yet to take sufficient time in its real sense. There has been a poor filtration or rather penetration of urban valleys into the countryside. This has given impetus to exodus of rural skilled workers and job seekers. It has resulted into transmission of unmatched tints into some of the cities to ultimately produce hybrid ecology. It would have been rather sound ecologically had the Indian technocrats and planners too gone to keep harmony with nature and produce social economic equilibrium. So, these experts are bringing the balance between village and urban sector. Unfortunately, in the list of urban industrial model parallel to the west, Indian cities grew so haphazardly as to become parasitic on the surrounding and countryside with the widened gap between rural and urban area. It seems that reality behind the urban scene of India, as pointed out by the Lambert, is in its hang like function in which less urbanized areas are connected below it with larger centers above in multi-level. Hierarchies of specialization such as administration and politics, commerce and religion, education are all combined together. Million cities 4 of India have appeared to grow lopsidedly at the expense of small towns. Not only this, the point of worry is rather than stagnation of the many of the small towns. They have become sick and have been suffering from diseases like lack of opportunities for growth, interplay of caste, class, social and economic bonds, reflecting slow pace of mobility. Truly speaking, it is the rural countryside that steps into the cities. The end product of the Indian urban scene is that cities have their feeble influence which is insufficient for meeting the demand of the consumers economically. Negligence towards the urban order of the middle category and particularly of the towns around the population of 20,000 is injuriously crucial, and they need immediate attention of the urban planners of our country to bring them into a channel